The transport ship shuddered as it docked with Kepler Station, and Lisa Martinez pressed her face against the small window to get her first look at the Galactic Military Academy. The massive structure stretched out in all directions, its metal corridors gleaming under the artificial lights. Ships from dozens of different worlds hung in the docking bays like sleeping giants. Lisa had never seen anything so big in her entire life. She picked up her small bag and followed the other new students through the airlock. The moment she stepped onto the station, she felt tiny. The ceilings were at least 20 feet high, and the corridors were wide enough for vehicles to drive through. Everything was built for beings much larger than humans. A group of Krillian cadets walked past her, their insect-like bodies clicking as they moved. Each one stood nearly 8 feet tall, with arms that looked like they could cut through steel. Behind them came 3 Gorlins, their stone-like skin making them look like walking mountains. Lisa was barely 5 feet tall and probably weighed less than one of their arms. "New human students report to Bay 7, announced a voice over the station speakers. Lisa followed the signs, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. She could hear other species talking in languages she did not understand, but her universal translator helped her catch bits of conversation. "Another group of humans," said a tall blue Aquarian to his friend. "I wonder how long these ones will last." "Probably not long," replied a Zephyrion, his body flickering between solid and energy form. "Humans are so weak. I still do not understand why the Alliance accepted them." Lisa kept walking and pretended not to hear. She had heard similar comments during her journey to the station. Most species seemed to think humans were a mistake, some kind of charity case that the Galactic Alliance had taken on out of pity. Bay 7 was crowded with about 30 human students from different Earth colonies. They all looked nervous and excited at the same time. Lisa found a spot near the back and waited. A few minutes later, the bay doors opened with a loud hiss. The being that entered was unlike anything Lisa had ever seen. Commander Zixtela stood, nearly 10 feet tall, with 4 powerful arms and skin that looked like living crystal. His armor gleamed under the lights, and his eyes glowed with a cold blue fire. Every step he took made the floor vibrate slightly. "Welcome to hell," he said, his voice like grinding stone. "I am Commander Zixtela, and for the next 6 months, I will be your combat instructor. Most of you will not survive the training. Those who do will wish they had not." He walked slowly in front of the group, his 4 eyes studying each human face. When he reached Lisa, he stopped and looked down at her. She could smell something like burning metal coming from his crystalline skin. "What is your name, small one?" he asked. "Lisa Martinez, sir," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "Lisa Martinez," he repeated, making her name sound like an insult. "Tell me, Lisa Martinez, what makes you think you belong here among warriors?" Lisa looked up at him without blinking. "I want to serve the Alliance, sir." Zixtela laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You want to serve? How noble! And what exactly can a tiny human like you offer to beings like us? Can you lift a combat rifle designed for Gorlins? Can you move fast enough to keep up with Krillians? Can you survive in the vacuum of space like Zephyrians?" "I can learn, sir," Lisa said quietly. "Learn," Zixtela repeated. "Yes, you will learn. You will learn that your species is weak. You will learn that you do not belong here. You will learn that humans are nothing more than soft creatures playing at being soldiers." He moved on to the next student, but Lisa could feel his attention returning to her throughout his speech. He explained the rules of the academy, the training schedule, and the standards they would need to meet. Everything sounded impossible for a human to achieve. After the briefing, the humans were divided into groups and shown to their dormitories. Lisa shared a room with 3 other girls, including a quiet girl named Amy from the Mars colonies and 2 sisters from Earth's moon bases. Their room was small but clean, with 4 beds and a single window showing the stars outside. "That commander really hates humans," said Amy as they unpacked their few belongings. "He hates everyone," replied one of the sisters. "My cousin was here 2 years ago. She said the instructors are mean to all the students. But he seemed to really focus on Lisa." said the other sister. Maybe because she talked back to him. Lisa did not say anything. She arranged her clothes in the small locker and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, her real home. She thought about her family, about the farm where she grew up, about the quiet life she had left behind. That night, she lay in her narrow bed and listened to the sounds of the station. Somewhere in the walls, she could hear the hum of massive engines. Footsteps echoed in the corridors as different species went about their business. The air recycling system made soft whooshing sounds. Tomorrow, the real training would begin. She had read about the Galactic Military Academy before coming here. The survival rate for humans was less than 40%. Most who failed were sent home with broken bones, damaged pride, and stories about how impossible it was for their species to compete. But Lisa had not come here to compete. She had come here for reasons that none of the other students would understand. Reasons that even Commander Zixtela could not imagine. As she drifted off to sleep, she smiled slightly. The hardest part was already over. She had made it here, and she had gotten the attention of exactly the right person. Everything was going according to plan. The alarm screamed through the dormitory at 4 a.m, jolting Lisa awake. Red lights flashed in the corridors as hundreds of cadets stumbled out of their rooms, trying to put on their training uniforms. Lisa was dressed and ready in less than 2 minutes, but many of her human classmates were still struggling with the complicated alien clothing. "Move faster, dirt crawlers!" shouted a Krillian upperclassman, his mandibles clicking with amusement. The instructors do not wait for slow humans. The main training hall was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows above. Cadets from 20 different species filled the space, arranged in neat rows according to their year and specialization. The humans were placed at the very back, behind everyone else. Commander Zixtela entered the hall like a storm. His crystalline armor caught the lights and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. Behind him walked 6 other instructors, each one representing a different species and looking equally intimidating. "Today begins your real education," Zixtela announced, his voice carrying easily across the huge space. "You will learn what it means to be soldiers in the Galactic Alliance. You will learn discipline, strength, and most importantly, you will learn your place." His glowing eyes swept across the assembled cadets and stopped on the group of humans at the back. "Some of you come from species with proud warrior traditions. Others," he paused meaningfully, "come from species that have never known true conflict. We will see which of you has the strength to continue." The first exercise was basic physical conditioning. Cadets had to carry heavy packs while running through an obstacle course designed for multiple species. The Gorlans moved through it like the obstacles were made of paper. The Krillians leaped over barriers that other species had to climb. The Zephyrians simply phased through walls when they thought no one was looking. The humans struggled. The packs were designed for beings twice their size, and the obstacles assumed a level of strength and reach that human bodies simply did not possess. One by one, Lisa watched her fellow humans fall behind, gasping for breath and stumbling under the weight of their equipment. Lisa finished the course, but she was among the last to cross the line. Her lungs burned and sweat dripped from her face. Commander Zixtela was waiting at the finish line, watching each human complete the exercise with obvious disappointment. "Pathetic," he said as the last human finally crawled across the line. "In a real combat situation, you would all be dead within minutes. The enemy would step over your bodies and not even notice they were there." The next exercise was weapons training. Each species had access to equipment designed for their physical capabilities. The weapons given to humans were the smallest and weakest available, but even these felt heavy and awkward in their hands. Lisa tried to aim a plasma rifle that was clearly made for someone with longer arms and stronger shoulders. "Martinez," called Commander Zixtela, "step forward." Lisa walked to the front of the group, carrying the oversized rifle. The other cadets watched with interest, wondering what the human had done to attract the commander's attention again. "Show us how humans fight," he said, gesturing toward a series of targets at the far end of the range. "Demonstrate the superior tactics of your species." Lisa raised the rifle and tried to find a comfortable grip. The weapon was designed for beings with 4 arms, so she had to hold it awkwardly with just 2. She aimed carefully and fired. The plasma bolt went wide, missing the target completely. Several alien cadets made sounds that might have been laughter. Zixtela nodded as if this result confirmed everything he believed about humans. "Try again," he said. Perhaps the first shot was just bad luck. Lisa fired 3 more times. 2 shots missed entirely, and 1 barely clipped the edge of a target. She could feel the embarrassment radiating from the other human cadets behind her. This was exactly the kind of failure that reinforced every stereotype about their species. "Enough," said Zixtela. "Return to your position." But as Lisa walked back to the group, she made sure to stumble slightly, as if the weight of the rifle was throwing off her balance. It was a small detail, but she knew the commander was watching. Everything she did was being evaluated and judged. The pattern continued for the next 3 weeks. Every day brought new exercises designed to highlight human weaknesses. Combat simulations, where humans could not keep up with faster species. Strategy sessions where their lack of natural armor or special abilities put them at a disadvantage. Equipment training with tools that were clearly not designed for human hands. Lisa failed most of the exercises, but she failed in specific ways. She was always close to success, always showing just enough competence to suggest she might improve. With more training, she made mistakes that looked like inexperience rather than inability. She asked questions that revealed gaps in her knowledge, while demonstrating that she was thinking seriously about the problems. Meanwhile, she watched everything. She studied how each species moved, how they thought, how they approached problems. She memorized the layout of the station, the schedules of the instructors, the capabilities of different weapons and equipment. She listened to conversations in languages she was not supposed to understand, picking up information about alliance. Military doctrine and strategy. Her roommates thought she was working harder than anyone else at the academy. Amy often found her awake late at night, reading training manuals or practicing with equipment. The other human cadets looked up to her as someone who refused to give up despite the constant failures and humiliation. "I do not know how you do it," Amy said one evening as Lisa practiced disassembling a plasma rifle for the 20th time. "If Commander Zixtela treated me the way he treats you, I think I would quit." "He wants me to quit," Lisa replied, not looking up from the weapon. "That is exactly what he expects humans to do when things get difficult." "But what if he is right?" asked Amy quietly. "What if we really do not belong here? What if humans are just not strong enough or smart enough to be real soldiers?" Lisa finally looked up from the rifle. Her roommate was sitting on her bed with her knees pulled up to her chest, looking small and defeated. It was an expression Lisa had seen on more and more human faces as the weeks passed. "We belong here," Lisa said firmly. "We just have to prove it in our own way." What Amy did not know was that Lisa had already started proving it, in ways that none of the instructors would notice until it was too late. The live combat exercise began at dawn on a Tuesday that would change everything. Commander Zixtela stood before the assembled cadets in the main briefing room, his forearms gesturing at a holographic display showing a complex industrial facility. The image rotated slowly, revealing multiple levels, defensive positions, and what appeared to be several heavily armed checkpoints. "This simulation represents a typical hostile installation that Alliance forces might need to secure," he announced, his crystalline skin reflecting the blue light from the hologram. "Teams of 5 cadets will work together to complete the mission. Success requires coordination, tactical thinking, and the ability to adapt when plans go wrong." Lisa listened carefully as he explained the rules. Each team would include members from different species, supposedly to encourage cooperation and understanding between the various Alliance races. In reality, Lisa suspected it was another way to highlight human inadequacies by forcing them to work with beings who possessed natural advantages. "Team assignments are posted on your personal devices," Zixtela continued. "You have 30 minutes to review the mission briefing with your teammates before the exercise begins. Remember, this is a live fire exercise with real consequences. Fail here, and you may not get another chance. Lisa checked her device and found her team assignment. She was paired with two Krillians named Zek and Kral, a massive Gorlan called Boulder, and herself. It was exactly the kind of team composition that seemed designed to make humans look useless. The Krillians were fast and deadly, the Gorlan was nearly indestructible. And she was a small human with no special abilities. The briefing room assigned to her team was small and cramped. The furniture was sized for larger beings, forcing Lisa to perch awkwardly on the edge of a chair while her teammates discussed strategy. Zek, the senior Krillian, took charge immediately. "This mission is simple," he said, his mandibles clicking as he spoke. "We move fast, use our natural advantages, and complete the objectives before other teams. Boulder will take point and absorb any defensive fire. Kral and I will flank around and eliminate targets. The human will stay back and try not to get in the way." Lisa started to speak up. "Actually, I noticed something in the facility layout that might— Humans do not plan strategy," interrupted Kral sharply. "You follow orders and try to keep up. That is how your species contributes." Boulder nodded his massive stone head in agreement. "Small human would just slow us down if we tried to include her in real tactics. Better she stays safe and lets us handle fighting." Lisa bit back her response and nodded obediently. This was exactly what she had expected. Her teammates saw her as dead weight, which meant they would not be paying attention to what she was actually doing during the exercise. When the 30-minute briefing period ended, the teams were transported to individual simulation chambers that could generate completely realistic combat environments. As Lisa strapped on her equipment and checked her weapons, she noticed several small details that her teammates had missed during their planning session. The simulation chamber sealed with a soft hiss, and suddenly they were standing in what appeared to be the courtyard of an industrial complex under a gray alien sky. The facility loomed before them, exactly as it had appeared in the holographic briefing. But Lisa could see things that the hologram had not shown clearly. The defensive positions were arranged in a pattern that she recognized. The timing of security patrols followed a sequence that seemed familiar. Even the layout of the facility itself reminded her of something she had seen before, though she could not quite place where. "Move out," ordered Zek, and the team began advancing toward their first objective. Boulder lumbered forward with the confidence of someone whose skin could stop most small arms fire. The two Krillians moved with the fluid grace of natural predators, their enhanced senses allowing them to spot threats before they became dangerous. Lisa followed behind, apparently struggling to keep up with their longer strides, but while her teammates focused on the obvious threats and objectives, Lisa was paying attention to everything else. She noticed how the enemy AI moved and reacted. She observed the acoustic properties of the environment and how sounds echoed off different surfaces. She studied the way light and shadow fell throughout the facility, creating blind spots and concealment opportunities. Most importantly, she began to recognize the combat scenario they were running. This was not just any generic industrial facility. The layout, the defensive arrangements, the tactical challenges, everything matched historical records of a real battle that had taken place several years ago. A battle that humans had won. As the exercise progressed, her teammates performed exactly as expected. Boulder absorbed enemy fire while the Krillians used their speed and agility to outflank defensive positions. It was efficient and effective, the kind of straightforward tactics that most Alliance species preferred, but Lisa could see problems developing. The enemy AI was adapting to their approach, learning from their tactics and adjusting its responses. What had started as an easy advance was becoming more difficult with each objective they completed. "Something is wrong," muttered Zek as they regrouped after clearing their third checkpoint. "Enemy resistance is increasing. They should be getting weaker as we eliminate their positions." "Maybe simulation is broken," suggested Boulder. "Or maybe human is making too much noise and alerting enemies to our position." Lisa kept quiet, but she knew exactly what was happening. The AI was programmed based on real alien military doctrine, which meant it thought like her teammates. It expected direct assaults, overwhelming force, and tactics that relied on natural physical advantages. but it was not prepared for the kind of approach that humans would use. By the time they reached the final objective, her team was struggling. They had taken casualties, depleted most of their ammunition, and were facing an enemy force that seemed to anticipate their every move. Zek was wounded, Crow was exhausted, and even Boulder's stone skin was showing damage from repeated hits. "We cannot complete mission," Zek admitted reluctantly. "Enemy is too strong. We need to retreat and report failure." "No," said Lisa quietly. Her teammates turned to look at her in surprise. Throughout the entire exercise, she had barely spoken except to acknowledge orders. "What did you say, human?" asked Crow dangerously. "I said no," Lisa repeated, her voice still calm. "We are not going to fail this mission, but we need to change our approach." Boulder laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Little human thinks she knows better than trained warriors. What could you possibly suggest that we have not already tried?" Lisa looked at each of them in turn, and for the first time since the exercise began, her expression was completely serious. "I suggest we stop fighting like aliens and start fighting like humans." What happened next would be talked about in the academy for years to come, though most who heard the story would never believe it really happened the way witnesses described. Lisa took charge of the team with a quiet authority that none of her teammates had expected. Her voice remained calm, but there was something in her tone that made even the proud Krillians listen carefully to her words. "The enemy AI is programmed to counter standard alliance tactics," she explained as they took cover behind a damaged wall. "It expects frontal assaults, overwhelming firepower, and predictable movement patterns. We have been giving it exactly what it was designed to handle." "Then what do you suggest, human?" asked Zek, his wounded mandibles clicking with pain and frustration. "We use their expectations against them," Lisa replied. She pointed to a series of maintenance tunnels that ran beneath the facility. "The AI thinks like you do. It assumes that warriors attack from positions of strength, using the most direct route to their objectives. It does not expect enemies to approach from positions of apparent weakness." Boulder shook his massive head. "Those tunnels are too small for Gorlans, too cramped for proper fighting. Any warrior would avoid such tight spaces." "Exactly," said Lisa. "Which is why the AI is not watching them carefully." What followed was unlike anything her teammates had ever experienced in combat training. Instead of charging directly at fortified positions, they moved through maintenance areas and utility corridors. Instead of engaging enemies at maximum range with superior firepower, they got close enough to use the environment itself as a weapon. Lisa showed them how to disable security systems by overloading power conduits. She demonstrated how to use the facility's own atmospheric controls to create confusion and concealment. When they encountered enemy positions that seemed impossible to assault directly, she found ways to collapse ceilings, redirect water flow, and even trigger controlled explosions using industrial equipment. "How do you know all this?" whispered Crow as they crawled through a ventilation shaft that Lisa had somehow identified as a secret route to their final objective. "Humans are good at improvising," Lisa replied, which was not exactly a lie. The truth was more complicated. Lisa knew these tactics because she recognized this scenario. The AI was running a simulation of the Battle of New Kandahar, one of humanity's most famous military victories. She had studied this battle extensively, not as a cadet trying to learn from alien instructors, but as a professional soldier, analyzing the tactical innovations that had made victory possible. The original human commanders at New Kandahar had faced similar odds against an enemy that seemed to predict their every move. They had won by abandoning conventional tactics entirely and embracing the kind of chaotic, adaptive approach that other species considered dishonorable or impractical, but Lisa could not explain this to her teammates without revealing far more about herself than was safe. Instead, she guided them through a masterclass in human warfare. Disguised as desperate improvisation, they reached the final objective through a route that the AI had never considered defending. The enemy forces were positioned to repel direct assault, but they were completely unprepared for attackers who emerged from the facility's own waste processing system. "This is insane," muttered Boulder as they prepared for their final approach. "No sane warrior fights from inside sewage pipes." "No," agreed Lisa, "but it works." The final assault lasted less than 10 minutes. Using tactics that violated every principle of honorable combat that the Alliance species valued, they neutralized the remaining enemy forces with minimal casualties and secured all objectives. The simulation ended with their team achieving not just success, but the highest score any cadet team had recorded in the Academy's history. As they emerged from the simulation chamber, Lisa's teammates looked at her with expressions she had never seen before. It was not just surprise or gratitude. It was something closer to fear. "How?" asked Zek simply. "I told you," Lisa replied. "Humans are good at improvising." But her explanation satisfied no one, least of all Commander Zixtela, who had been monitoring the exercise from the observation deck. He had watched the entire scenario unfold with growing disbelief, and now he stood waiting for them as they exited the chamber. "Explain what happened in there," he demanded, his forearms crossed and his crystalline skin flickering with agitation. "We completed the mission, sir," Lisa replied respectfully. "You did more than complete it," Zixtela snarled. "You achieved results that should have been impossible for a team of your composition. The tactical approach you used was unlike anything taught at this academy." Lisa met his glowing eyes without flinching. "We adapted to the situation, sir." "Is that not what soldiers are supposed to do?" For a long moment, the massive alien stared down at the small human. Around them, other cadets and instructors had gathered to hear about the team that had broken every academy record. The air was thick with tension and unspoken questions. "Report to my office at 2000 hours, Zixtela finally said. "All of you, I want a full debriefing of your tactics and decision-making process." As the crowd began to disperse, Lisa felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. She had accomplished exactly what she needed to accomplish, but she had also attracted far more attention than was safe. Commander Zixtela was no fool, and he was beginning to suspect that there was more to Lisa Martinez than met the eye. That evening, as she prepared for the debriefing that might expose everything, Lisa allowed herself a small smile. The plan was working perfectly, but the most dangerous part was just beginning. The debriefing room was smaller than Lisa expected, with walls covered in tactical displays and star charts. Commander Zixtela sat behind a desk that seemed too small for his massive frame, his forearms folded and his glowing eyes fixed on Lisa with uncomfortable intensity. Her teammates sat in chairs arranged in a semicircle, all of them looking nervous and confused. "I have reviewed the recordings of your exercise," Zixtela began, his voice carefully controlled. "What I saw contradicts everything I thought I knew about human capabilities. Either this was an extraordinary example of beginner's luck, or someone has been hiding their true abilities." He activated a holographic display that showed key moments from their simulation. Lisa watched herself guide her team through impossible tactics, seeing her own performance from an outside perspective for the first time. Even she had to admit it looked suspicious. "Cadet Martinez," the commander continued, "your tactical knowledge during this exercise exceeded what any first-year student should possess. You demonstrated familiarity with advanced infiltration techniques, improvisational warfare, and strategic thinking that typically requires years of specialized training." Lisa kept her expression neutral. "I learned from watching my teammates, sir. Krillians are naturally good at moving through tight spaces, and Gorlans understand structural engineering. I just suggested ways to combine their abilities." "You suggested more than that," Zixtela replied coldly. He gestured to another display showing detailed analysis of their approach routes. "This tactical pattern matches strategies used in several historical human military campaigns. Campaigns that occurred before you were even born." The room fell silent. Lisa could feel her teammates staring at her, beginning to understand that their small human companion was not what she appeared to be. Boulder's stone fingers drummed nervously on his chair, while the two Krillians exchanged glances that suggested they were reconsidering everything they thought they knew about her. "Furthermore," continued the commander, Your performance throughout. This simulation was inconsistent with your previous training results. For 3 weeks, you have struggled with basic exercises and equipment. Then suddenly, you demonstrate tactical brilliance that surpasses most graduated officers. Lisa realized that the moment of truth had arrived. She could continue pretending to be an inexperienced cadet and hope to deflect suspicion, or she could reveal enough of the truth to satisfy Zixthala's curiosity without exposing her real mission. Both options carried enormous risks. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" she asked. "Granted." Lisa took a deep breath and made her choice. "I have been holding back, sir. Not because I wanted to deceive anyone, but because I was trying to fit in. Everyone expects humans to be weak and incompetent. I thought it would be easier to meet those expectations than to constantly prove myself against species with obvious physical advantages." "So you deliberately performed below your capabilities?" "Yes, sir. I thought it would help me avoid attention and focus on learning from my instructors. I was wrong." Zixthala leaned back in his chair, studying her with those unsettling glowing eyes. "And where exactly did a human cadet acquire advanced tactical training?" This was the crucial moment. Lisa had prepared for this question, but she knew that her answer would determine whether she could continue her mission or whether everything would fall apart. "My father was a military strategist during the colonial wars," she said, which was not entirely untrue. "He taught me to think about combat as a puzzle to be solved rather than a contest of strength. When I saw the simulation layout, I recognized patterns from historical battles he had described to me. It was a plausible explanation, and it contained enough truth to be believable. Many human colonies had experienced conflicts before joining the Alliance, and it was reasonable that military knowledge might be passed down through families. But Commander Zixthala was not convinced. The colonial wars ended 12 years ago. You would have been a child. Children do not learn advanced tactical doctrine from bedtime stories." "Some children do, sir," Lisa replied quietly. "Especially children whose fathers believed that the galaxy was more dangerous than most humans realized." Something in her tone made the commander pause. For the first time since the interrogation began, his aggressive posture softened slightly. He seemed to be considering possibilities that had not occurred to him before. "What did your father tell you about the galaxy, Cadet Martinez?" Lisa met his eyes directly. "He told me that humans were invited to join the Alliance not because we were wanted, but because we were feared. He said that other species studied our history and decided it was safer to keep us close than to let us develop in isolation. He taught me that the only way humans would survive in this galaxy was to be better than everyone expected us to be." The silence that followed was deafening. Her teammates stared at her in shock while Commander Zixthala processed the implications of what she had just said. Lisa knew she was walking a very thin line between revelation and catastrophe. "Your father sounds like a very wise man," Zixthala said finally. "And perhaps a very dangerous one. He was a realist, sir." The commander stood up, his massive frame making the room feel even smaller. He walked to the window that looked out over the Academy's training areas, where hundreds of cadets from dozens of species were going through their daily exercises. "Tell me, Cadet Martinez," he said without turning around, "what do you think would happen if the Alliance leadership knew that humans were capable of the kind of performance you demonstrated today?" Lisa considered her answer carefully. "I think they would want to understand how many more humans like me exist, sir." "And how many do exist?" "I honestly do not know, sir. But I suspect the answer would surprise everyone." Zixthala turned back to face her, and for the first time since she had met him, Lisa saw something other than contempt in his expression. It might have been respect, or it might have been fear. "Possibly both. You are dismissed," he said to her teammates. "All of you except Martinez." After the others left, the commander and the human cadet stood facing each other in the empty room. Lisa knew that whatever happened next would determine not just her own fate, but potentially the future relationship between humanity and the Galactic Alliance. "I am going to ask you one more question," Zixthala said slowly, "and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Are you really just a farm girl from Earth's agricultural colonies who learned tactics from her father's war stories? Lisa looked up at the towering alien warrior who had spent weeks trying to break her spirit and prove human inferiority. She thought about her real mission, about the intelligence she had been gathering, about the plans that were already in motion throughout the Alliance. "No, sir," she said simply. "I am not." And in that moment, both of them understood that everything was about to change.